Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Capitalist Investor. You got Mark, Derek, and Luke.
Yo, yo, yo.
What's up?
What the dealio?
Living the dream.
Yeah, you are.
All right, we're going to do that every show now, huh?
Every show.
Nice, I love it. The Capitalist Investor, subtitle, Living the Dream. It's good stuff.
Yep.
All right, man, so I'm sure we got some hot topics we want to go through, so let's rattle them off for our listeners. So first thing we're going to hit is we're going to debate whether members of Congress and their spouses should be able to trade stocks. I think most of our listeners probably already know our opinion on that, but we're going to debate it anyways. I don't know if there's much debate to be had there, but we will try to debate it. Second thing is the CDC. They are finally admitting that they suck at communicating with the media.
Took long enough, man.
Finally.
It's been
Finally.
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we'll hit on that, and then we're going to hit on, so we got National Hot Sauce Day, which is January 22nd. This episode comes out after that, but still, I think we need to talk about our favorite hot sauces.
Absolutely.
This is probably one of my favorite topics. That
Well, because you're the chicken wing bandit, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love my hot chicken sauce, or chicken wing sauce, and actually, we're getting sent some barbecue sauce. One of our clients,
one of our new clients.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
I'm
man.
looking forward to that, too.
Well, tell me more about that.
No, you got to wait.
You gotta wait to find out about that.
No.
Man. When I bring the barbecue sauce to my office, I already know. Derek's the pulled pork meat fiend over here.
Derek is a freaking guru when it comes to smoking.
So
meats.
he actually came in yesterday and said, "Luke, I got some pulled pork. Please don't eat it all." First thing he said to me, but I'm like,
fat little piggy.
Once I found out he was bringing that in, I'm like, I have to go get some because this guy knows how to smoke his meats.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'll definitely get you some of that barbecue sauce, man.
Well, I don't know if I'm giving away too much at the beginning of the show, but we'll get back to it at the end. But
All right,
for the games,
save the best for last.
I
the
made
most fun.
some special smoked meats for the football games this weekend. So we'll get into that.
So I got the invite, right?
I'm gonna kamikaze that party. All right, so let's start off with should members of Congress and their spouses be able to trade stocks? Let's back up for a second. And let's call a spade here, and let's attack Elizabeth Warren, because we like to do that at least every other show.
Absolutely.
On the non-Elizabeth Warren shows, we'll go after like AOC or Nancy Pelosi. And in fact, we may actually hit on Nancy Pelosi today as well, which I know we're going to hit on Nancy Pelosi.
I thought that too. We were hitting on. Like, where'd Elizabeth Warren come from?
We're not hitting on Nancy Pelosi by any means.
Who would?
Yeah. All right. So Elizabeth Warren, I think in October of last year, she launched this investigative inquiry into the Fed and the FOMC members and their trading, right? And we know Richard Clarida, I think it's Clarida, one of the FOMC members, he's stepping down at the end of this month. And there was a lot of controversy surrounding some of his trades. I believe it was leading into the pandemic. Sold out of like all of his equity mutual funds and stuff like that, and then happened to time it perfectly when he knew the Fed was going to step in and save the day and rebought them all right at the bottom. So, obviously you can't do that. Like there's got to be some restrictions there. But this is not the question that we're posing for debate here is not about the FOMC. It's about the House of Representatives, the Senate, the President of the United States, elected officials who are serving the United States.
That are making policies that are influencing, stocks, business, right? So they have the power to
they can
move
influence.
markets.
Yes, they have influence.
Right.
And they're profiting from their influence, which is not okay.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that I know for sure the president is prohibited from trading stocks. I do believe that as of right now, Congress is as well, but the husbands and spouses are not, and wives.
And all right, so let's just take a mini step back and let's talk about Congress and let's talk about trading stocks first of all. So I believe Clarida, the FOMC guy, I believe it was mutual funds, which are probably allowed.
Correct. Yep.
So you're allowed to be in mutual funds and probably ETFs, but you can't. So he didn't even, from my understanding, I may be wrong here, but I didn't research the story prior to talking about it, which is always, something you don't want to do, but I'm doing it anyways. I'm pretty sure it was just mutual funds. So that's kind of been the work around it. And look, I understand these people, they need to grow their retirement nest egg as well.
Yeah.
So we can't completely handcuff them and say, you can't own anything that makes money.
Yeah.
We can't do that. But are mutual funds okay? Are ETFs okay? Stocks are definitely not okay. But then you still run the risk of, well, I'm going to sell all of my, SPY ETF, and then I'm going to rebuy it when I know something good's coming to save the market. So,
right. Yeah, so especially if they're pumping all the stimulus into the markets, right? And if they pass a bill or they're talking about a bill behind the scenes or such before it even comes out publicly, I'm like, hey, we're announcing a $5 trillion spending package that's going to inflate the entire economy. If that's like what they're hearing behind the scenes before it goes public, and then they buy the SPY, and then on the news it comes out that they're even talking about it, it doesn't even have to get passed.
Yeah.
If they're just talking about it, the market's going to react to it.
It's manipulating the markets.
Right.
Based off of non-public information.
And that's where ETFs and mutual funds can even be a trouble for, these people in Congress. But at the same time, though, I'm a believer in the free markets. I'm a believer in access. So that's why this is tough, because it's like they still do need to grow their retirement nest egg. They still need access to investments. But how do you restrict them from trading on insider information? And I think that's the key, is being able to monitor it better.
Well, nobody talks about those stupid robo-advisors anymore. Nobody. Wealthfront, Betterment.
That's true. Yeah.
What a flash in the pan those things were.
Yeah.
I mean, they were hot for a couple of years. They went out. They got all this venture capital money. These companies were getting... Dude, Wealthfront was doing like $1 million of revenues. Like, they were smaller than where we were at the time that they came out. And I want to say they got like $100 million plus valuation. And I'm like, well, how do I sell my company for 100 times revenue? Like, I'm out right now. I'm retiring right now. Selling. But those were the hot things. Now no one talks about them. No one cares, and it's dumb. But the whole robo-advisor thing is automatic rebalancing.
Right.
Maybe that's what the members of Congress and the members of the Fed, maybe that's where they need to have their money.
Yeah.
Because I can see the argument for, hey, man, I'm 70-30 stocks to bonds, but that I set that when I was 60 years old, and now I'm 72.
Yeah.
We got to figure out a hybrid approach to not disadvantaging them from growing their retirement funds and taking chips off the table when it's appropriate, based on age or risk. But we have to prevent them from profiting off non-public information that the rest of America is unable to profit from.
Sure.
I saw in researching this that in their polls, so you got to take them with a grain of salt, but essentially 75% of the country, 3/4, believes that members of Congress shouldn't be able to trade stocks because of essentially insider information, right? That is what sent Martha Stewart to jail, and they have access to all of this information, right? They're clearly acting on it. It's right in front of our faces. We can see it.
Yep.
We can research it. We'll put a link in the show notes for it's a site called unusualwhales.com, and it just lists out all their trades. It's public information, right?
Yep.
There's too many to read, but it's clear that they are acting on the information that they have. So my question with a lot of this stuff, not just this topic, is does anyone actually care? That is really what it comes down to. Because there's a poll that says 75% of Americans are against this. The members of Congress are clearly doing it.
Yep.
We have a plethora of information for the show. Is anyone going to step up and do anything about it? There's like 3 or 4 members of the House and the Senate that say they do. Everyone else is mum on the topic, including a lot of Republicans who are also making
both
a lot
parties.
Yep.
Yeah, this is not our normal one-party attack. This is, members of both parties are taking advantage of this.
Absolutely.
Now, Nancy Pelosi, we need to bring her up because none of us like her. And because she is the one who's kind of been front and center with her husband making all those trades along the way. It looks like her performance may have been double what the S&P did last year. Pretty darn close to double.
44% is the number that 44% return.
Okay, and I think the S&P total return was maybe 27.
Yeah, but not only was her husband trading stocks, they were trading options as well. That's even to it.
That's where you're leveraging your returns.
Yeah, that's a bigger extent of like trading insider information, and that's the big issue. Is I don't think members of Congress are able to trade specifically stocks, but the husbands and the wives, the spouses are.
Yeah,
that's the big issue at hand.
So all right, so every time we're on Fox. And anytime I mention a stock, I have to provide full disclosure to Fox.
Right.
I have to let them know whether I own it, whether my family owns it, whether our company owns it for itself or for clients, and whether or not we have an investment banking relationship with that company.
Yep.
I have to do that. Why don't these guys have to do it?
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
It is. But the question that Derek posed, I like that question, is does anybody care? Or are we going to do anything about that? The problem is that most, and I'm going to go there, most of these politicians, and again, both parties, they all are culprits of doing this. So it's going to be harder because it's not like people in Congress are going to go after each other for this because there are a lot of people doing it.
So hey, Nancy, your returns were a little exaggerated last year, but I'm going to look the other way because I did a little better than you.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what's hard is it's just politicians. They get in there, they have good intentions usually, but it kind of get corrupted.
Yeah.
So
do they really have good intentions?
I think some do.
Come on.
Going into it like,
and then they realize they're just pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of them are puppets.
Yeah.
And they kind of just say what they're told.
Yeah.
And power gets to people's heads, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is. It's sad. It's a sad world we live in. That's one of the issues that I constantly see come up.
Yep.
But hey, the question is, what are we going to do about it? That's a great question. Because I think we should, but it's going to be hard to go about it.
You would have to find a collection of big-time non-politicians like Elon Musk coming together with Mark Cuban coming together, like a bunch of guys like that, because Mark Cuban was fighting with the SEC back in the day. Mm-hmm. We all remember that. Elon Musk has been fighting with the SEC. You almost need to have enough of those guys come together and say, if you're going to mess with us over this, we need to hold all the politicians accountable.
Sure.
Like, it would require an army of ultra high net worth people.
You need powerful people fighting powerful people.
Yeah, and they're going to have to lobby for it, right?
Right.
This is where the swamp conversation comes into play, right?
Yes.
Because when you start talking about it, it seems obvious, right? I'll just read this one. House Republican Brian Mast Tilray purchase and subsequent sale at its all-time high in early 2021 for returns of 563%, gets even sketchier when we remember that he bought Tilray a couple weeks before voting in support of the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment Expungement, MORE for short, in late 2020. So he's clearly acting on this information. Like House Democrat Kathy Manning, who sits on the House Committee for Foreign Affairs, bought $30,000 of Lockheed Martin on October 22nd, just 2 weeks before the news hit, of the purchase of, upgrading the Air Force's F-22. So 2 weeks before that happened, she has information to it. She acts on it and makes a boatload of money. Does anyone, the people who are in charge of making sure this doesn't happen are basically, Congress, right? They're in charge of passing the laws, and the SEC. How does who appoints people to the SEC?
Yeah. Are you asking a question?
Yeah.
Or like
the president?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the politicians.
Yeah, the politicians. So it's
It's a government agency.
It's a government agency. So it almost seems like one of these things that we talk about. Everyone's angry about it. There's a few politicians that say we shouldn't do it, and then it gets kicked under the rug.
So this kind of is reminiscent of the Hulu series Dopesick. Have you guys watched that?
No.
So it's all about the opioid crisis, and it's got Rosario Dawson. She's like some sort of an FBI agent or something like that, who really just she was relentless. She wouldn't let go, and Purdue Pharma kept figuring out ways to kind of grease the skid and couple $100 million here and there so they could continue to lie about their drug. Eventually she got to him. It's almost like you need someone like that who just says, this is done. I'm not going to allow this anymore, and I'm going after it. I'm going to fight tooth and nail. But this is a decade-long process.
Oh, yeah.
I think Rosario Dawson was going after Purdue Pharma and all the big opioid producers for at least a decade, if you kind of go through the timeline of that story. So,
I mean, legal battles in general take years.
Yeah.
Like especially big ones. So I mean, that's one big part of it as well. Real quick on this topic, kind of end things. My favorite, I should say, my least favorite part, but my favorite thing that I laugh about, that's part of the Stock Act that was passed in 2012. That says members and their families are forbidden to trade on insider information. First of all, why was that not passed before 2012? Why for the past 150 years, 200 years, have people been able to take advantage of insider information in Congress? And then second of all, they're also required to report stock trades to Congress within 45 days. Why is it not before or like the same day they're doing it? Why is it within 45 damn days?
If we want to trade a stock or an ETF here, we have to report that we're about to buy it before we buy it.
Yep.
We don't get 40 plus days.
Exactly.
That's absurd. All right, so. I'm angry. Next topic. All right, CDC. I'm going to get
this
angry about this too.
This won't make us angry.
Man, I did a damn good job of picking the topics today.
Yeah, you're ruffling some feathers here. All right, so the CDC finally admits its messaging is poor. I mean, is it 5 days? Is it 10 days? Is it different if you have symptoms versus no symptoms? Do masks work? Do they not? Cloth masks, do those work? Do vaccines work or not? Like,
none of it works. That's what we've learned.
So I saw this story maybe on Twitter yesterday. Like I think the chief medical director or whatever of Israel finally came out and said, none of this shit's going to work. None of it. Our only opportunity right now is natural immunity, herd immunity. That's it. The vaccines aren't working. That was, well, maybe they are. Maybe it's preventing
Severity,
people from dying. Yeah, but I mean, as far as contracting the virus goes, it's getting everyone, including vaccinated people. Masks don't work. Like, I remember the cloth mask thing, back in early 2000 when everyone had to start wearing them. I went right on Fox and I'm like, they're stupid. They're filthy. What do you mean? Well, I watch what people are doing. They get out of their car at the gas station. They put them on. They go in. Someone else coughs onto their cloth mask, and they take it off and put it in their glove compartment. And then they'll put it back on a day later. Like,
after
they're filthy.
touching the gas handle, right?
Right.
Touching
right.
the door. It's insanity. It really is. Like, I'm not a doctor, but I was able to figure out using only the internet in March of 2020 that, cloth masks are largely ineffective. They're not going to be able to be used properly. These paper masks, that's kind of the badge, right? So I've never even purchased a real mask. I just wear the disposable ones. It's like my form of protest that I'm only doing this because I have to, and I just don't feel like fighting with anyone in public.
At what point are our ears going to be permanently pulled forward from wearing those damn things?
Seriously.
Like, man, after I get off of like a plane and I've been in and out of airports and I've had them on for 8 straight hours, like my ears hurt and I feel like they're getting pulled forward.
There's been times when I've been wearing a mask that I feel short of breath just because I feel like I'm not getting enough air.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes me sound kind of like weak, but like seriously, like that's just how I feel. Like it's especially like airplane, right?
Yep.
You have a 4-hour flight. A couple of months ago when I went to Vegas, 4-hour flight, I had to wear that damn mask for 4 hours, and that was bad. Like it was hard. It's hard to
Then
sleep
you're wearing
with it too,
it,
obviously on the plane.
at the airport before you leave, the
Yeah.
airport, back, on the runway. Like, man, you probably wore the mask that day for 8 hours.
Yeah, and then
8 straight hours.
And I've also noticed that like over the past year, I've been breaking out around my like mustache area and like the beard area, just because I'm constantly wearing the mask.
call
so,
that
like,
mask
now,
me,
thankfully,
right?
I've got a beard to cover it up, but still, I've noticed that, right?
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me is the data and the record keeping that the CDC has done over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Everybody know it's been horrible. Like the data, the numbers they've been keeping, like, you know, policies and the outcomes are only as good as the inputs, right? Of the data that you're kind of looking at to come up with the policies, to come up with recommendations.
Yeah.
And if the data's bad, which it was from the beginning, they were blaming COVID for a lot of deaths that they shouldn't have been blaming COVID for. Like COVID, they might have had COVID, but that wasn't the main cause of the death. Things like that,
Yep.
right? That's why I think the CDC's been so off. Is just because they have not been able to get their data right.
Yep.
And that's important. And I still don't think it's right. I still don't think they even have a clue about, you know, what the data should show or how they should be keeping records.
Yeah.
So, you know, in my opinion, I think one of the biggest negative takeaways that we're going to see from all of this is that there's just a large amount of the population right now that just doesn't believe anything that anyone says coming from the government, right?
Yep.
Or a government agency. So at this current point in time, I don't believe anything the CDC tells me. So if in 5 years there's a, you know, I don't want to say real, but, you know, a much more dangerous public health crisis, how many lives is that going to cost with people just not believing what they're saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. And my favorite thing was when this New Year's Eve, my buddy had COVID, and there was like a 10-day quarantine he had to do, and he was on like day number like 4 or something, like right or 5, right, like the day of New Year's Eve, and they changed it like a couple days right before New Year's Eve. So I texted him and said, "There's no excuses for you not to come out now." He's like, "Damn, you're right." So he ended up coming out, but like it's just like that's kind of ridiculous. Like just all of a sudden you go from 10 days to 5 days, whatever it was. Like,
Yep.
like you should know. I mean, that's a big range. Like I understand you go from 6 days maybe down to 5 days, but 10 to 5, like that's a big cutoff. That's how wrong they were.
Right. But that's the thing. Were they wrong, or was it some sort of agenda? You know.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably both.
So, you know, I'm not trying to spread conspiracy theories, but there's no scientific or medical data that would support randomly changing an isolation period from 10 days
You
to 5
can't
days.
trust the science when the numbers and data is wrong.
Exactly.
You can't.
That's, you know, people, you know, make fun of people that do their own research. You know, that's a thing on Twitter now. But it's like, just give us the information. That's all we really want.
Yeah.
Let us know what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a good little quick hit here. Joe Rogan, right? So he's obviously a hot topic right now. I saw this, you know, a letter from 270 doctors sent to Spotify about Joe Rogan and how he's a danger to public health. So a week after that story came out, basically someone looked into it. None of the, well, I shouldn't say none. A majority of those 270 people weren't even doctors.
What were they? Like naturopathic doctors?
Yeah, like cannabis farmers.
Oh my God. Seriously?
So, seriously.
I think I would trust them with my life.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's like, so we got all these people lying, and then we have, you know, is the media lying to us, or are they just lazy and just, you know, forward stuff on? But like, how are we supposed to trust this information when, you know, one person can look into this and figure out that it's completely false?
Yeah.
Hold on. So Martin Luther King Day was like a week ago, and I tweeted something, one of his quotes. You mentioned lazy. Rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There's an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. I think that summarizes probably the past 2 years of COVID.
Yeah.
Seriously, because everyone wants easy answers. They don't want to look at the data, think for themselves. They want to trust what's being told.
Well, the government wants to tell us how to think too.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
That's
They don't
no
want
doubt
us to,
about
they
that.
don't want us to think on our own. That's why there's all these mandates. We're going to tell you how to think. We're going to tell you how to act. And it turns out at some point, I think hopefully what's going to happen is all these mandates and guidelines go bye-bye. And it's like, you know what? Live your life. If you're worried, do whatever you need to do to prevent yourself from getting sick. Like there's no one's going to look down upon you for doing that. But if you want to live your life, go live your life. If you got the sniffles and you want to go to work, that's on you. And everyone's just going to have to know that this is a risk that's never going away.
Time is the biggest asset, and we've given 2 years now to this. 2 years of our lives.
Yep.
To putting up with a lot of this BS.
Yep. I
And
agree.
that's the biggest thing that I'm upset and mad about.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to hot sauce. We'll end on a good note here.
Absolutely. All right, so to complete the tease before you read that, Luke. So this weekend, so I'm a Buffalo Bills fan as well. We talked about it a little bit.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, I lived in Buffalo before we moved to Cleveland when I was very young, 10 years old. So, but when I was, first coming up into football, it was the Buffalo Bills dynasty, right? So not quite a dynasty, but at least in the AFC. So anyway, I saw on social media the Bills put out this one chef who does a bunch of stuff, and he did basically smoked ribs, but then were cut into individual riblets, I guess, coated in buffalo sauce, deep fried, and then coated in buffalo sauce again. So it was like a deep fried buffalo wing, but rib.
That
Wow.
sounds amazing.
So I tried them for the first time this weekend. It was one of the best things that I've ever made.
Wow.
It was so good. It was.
I would definitely put on the weight with those, man. Like,
'Cause it kind of, with the wing sauce, it tastes almost wing like.
Yeah.
But you're getting the crunch too from the deep frying. But then you have like a smoky flavor on the inside.
I feel like
too.
it'd be like a lot better version.
It's elaborate.
I feel like it'd be a lot better version of the like Applebee's riblets. Like, have you had
Yes.
those? Like, they're all right, but they're kind of like there's not much meat to them. But I feel like that would be like just a souped up better version of that.
Yep. So
Let's not talk about the McRib while we're on that topic.
so
Right? That's horrible.
so that
Can't believe
made-
people get
made me
excited
think
for
about
that thing.
sauce.
They
Ugh.
do. It's just like I don't know. It's like the worst part. Well, anything McDonald's.
I had
I
it a
guess,
couple
is the worst
times when
part
I
of-
was a kid, and it never did it for me.
Yeah, I had it once as a kid, and I haven't had it since.
Yeah, you learn your lesson real fast with that one. All right, so let's run through the America's favorite hot sauces. So number one, I was going to say Wong there because it's Hoi Fong Sriracha. So I don't know much about Hoi Fong, but I do know I love sriracha sauce.
I'm pretty sure that's the most popular sriracha
Is it?
sauce. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think
all the
that's the only
sriracha
one.
we have in our fridge, I'm pretty sure
It's
is
that
Hoi-
little plastic bottle with
Yeah.
the screw off top.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, I like that one. That's a good one. Thank you, Hoi
But,
Fong.
but the question is, does it beat number 2, which is Frank's Red Hot?
That's my go-to. That one and Texas Pete, which comes in at number 7. Those are my two go-tos typically. They're both good.
Yeah.
I really can't. I mean, hot sauce is to me, it's really not necessarily a flavor. It's about the fire in your mouth, right? Like it's.
But it's got to be like a clean fire.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
it's
it
tou-
can't be
it's-
like a burning, like, horrible fire. It's got to be like a
Right.
nice, like, kick to it to where you're not like,
Yep.
your nose is dripping and you're
So to that point, that's why I'm a big Tabasco guy. So I obviously love the sriracha. I use the Frank's Red Hot for the wings, the rib wings that I just mentioned, because it's perfect. But I put Tabasco on pretty much everything. Luke knows because his office is next to mine. It goes on my eggs in the morning.
every morning I'm like, what the hell
So
is that?
Tabasco is one. If I see Tabasco, Frank's Red Hot, and Texas Pete all sitting, I would never go for the Tabasco.
Yep.
So, but Tabasco is the one that you're most likely to see, like on the table at a restaurant.
Yeah.
To little tiny bottles.
Yep.
Right.
The reason why I like Tabasco is because I think it adds that heat, but it doesn't overpower the food.
Okay.
But it also, adds a little bit of a unique flavor.
Yeah.
So
I'll be honest, I thought I'd recognize a lot more of these on here. But, like, I only recognize, like, 3. Like, I only recognize the Hoi Fong Sriracha, the Frank's Red Hot, and the Tabasco. Number 3, you got Cholula.
I love Cholula.
I never had that.
That's the
excellent.
Mexican one, right? With the wooden screw top.
Oh, maybe I did have that.
Yeah,
Is there at
it's
Mexican
excellent.
restaurants?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very good.
Number 4 is Berman's.
I don't know about Berman's.
5 is Tapatio.
Tapatio? I've never heard of it.
6 is Tabasco. 7's Texas Pete. You said you liked that. I never had
Yep.
Texas Pete. 8's Heinz. So, like,
I
Heinz
would never.
ketchup.
That's not for me. You know, Heinz doesn't specialize in hot sauce, so
Yeah.
not for me. You know, I'd rather go with the Frank's Red Hot or Texas Pete, where that's kind of, or Tabasco,
Right.
where that's what they do. Mm-hmm. The Heinz route seems to be you just know the name brand, so you scoop it up.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. But I'm sure it's decent.
sure,
I never
yeah.
had it.
I'm sure it's fine.
9's Louisiana, which is actually the most popular in Louisiana.
There you go.
You know, that makes a ton of sense. 10 is Valentina. Never heard of that one.
Nope.
Now, real quick, let's go through the states. This is kind of really interesting. The states who like hot sauce the most. 1 is North Dakota. 2 is New Mexico. 3 is Colorado. 4 is California. And 5 is North Carolina. That's kind of interesting to me. I don't know why. I'd kind of think more of the southern states. Like New Mexico makes sense to me.
The Colorado and California are throwing me off a little bit.
Right. In North Dakota, I mean, I don't know. That doesn't really make sense. I don't know. I've never been to North Dakota, but
I think it's the sriracha that's coming in there out west. I think that's very popular.
Is that
Yeah.
the deal?
Mm-hmm.
so North Carolina's just chilling by itself, kind of.
I mean, Colorado and California, you got the munchies out there for sure. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely got the munchies. So maybe they just eat more chicken wings in general.
There you go.
know? States who like it the least: Hawaii, Iowa, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Rhode Island. I'm not able to draw any conclusion from any of this data.
No.
You know? All right, just kind of random
It's
states.
just kind of random stuff.
Kinda
and
random.
Fun to talk about, but
only
the one thing does make sense to me is in Ohio we are Frank's Red Hot. That makes tons of sense because I've seen so many people just put Frank's Red Hot. I remember even back in college, like when we were eating the dining hall, everyone was eating Frank's Red Hot. So
It's
that makes sense.
it's got a noticeable label. You know, I mean, when you're at the grocery store, it just kind of pops out. So
But-
easy to find, and you like it already. You know.
But to sum it up, I think hot sauce in general, most people like. If you don't like hot sauce, I mean that's fine as well. But I think for the most part, if you find the hot sauce that works for you, it makes almost every food better. So,
Yeah. No doubt.
especially my chicken wings.
Yeah. All right.
But you need blue real quick. All right. I'm sorry. Before we end this thing, are you guys blue cheese or ranch?
ranch.
Oh, I'm all blue cheese.
All right, I'm blue cheese.
I've never
I
been
mean,
a fan
I like
of blue
both,
cheese.
but
Ugh.
when I have chicken wings that are hot, I need blue cheese to dip it in.
See, I think the ranch gives you that cooling effect. Yeah. You prefer the blue cheese?
I do.
though, huh?
I think both are good. I mean, I'm not going to pass up ranch, but I'll
yeah.
prefer
I put
blue cheese
ranch on
over ranch.
everything, but if it comes for wings, I'm all blue cheese.
I just had to throw that out there. It's relevant to
That's
hot
from
sauce.
That's
so.
from my Buffalo roots, though. You're
Yeah.
ostracized if you use ranch on your
Really?
chicken wings. Oh yeah.
Man, I'm never moving to Buffalo. All right, guys, that wraps up today's show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. As always, thanks for joining us. Shoot us any emails if you have questions, info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.